Welcome everyone to this episode of the Palmetto Guardian. I'm Sergeant Chelsea Weaver, and today we have a full studio. I'm going to let everybody go ahead and introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into today's topic. So we'll start with you, sir.
My name is Colonel Jeff Penland. I'm with JFHQ. I'm the Staff Judge Advocate at JFHQ. I'm a part-time M-Day Judge Advocate or member of the South Carolina Army National Guard. On the full-time side of my civilian life, I'm a government relations and public policy person for an electric utility in South Carolina called Santee Cooper.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Chris Barton. I'm a colonel in the South Carolina National Guard. I'm the state staff judge advocate. On the M-Day side, I am the attorney advisor for the South Carolina National Guard.
Hi, I'm Kelvin Wright. I'm a major in the South Carolina National Guard. M-Day, I'm the brigade judge advocate for 59th Aviation Troop Command. And as a civilian, I am a DA civilian, Title V for the South Carolina Military Department, and I'm an attorney advisor in that position.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate each of you stopping by today to talk to us. I know we're going to learn some exciting information. I don't really know much about the judge advocate or what others know as JAG, so I'm excited. But, sir, if you want to go ahead and kind of just talk about what a JAG is and what it entails and all that fun stuff.
Sure. So JAG stands for Judge Advocate General Corps. The Judge Advocate General is an attorney. The attorney serves as an advisor to the command. There are also a couple of roles in which the attorney would also advise individual soldiers. That's normally in the areas of trial defense services or TDS, and then also in the area of legal assistance. Those are the two times where the attorney would actually work one-on-one with the soldier or a soldier's family. Otherwise, the JAG is there to advise the command.
Okay. So on the civilian side, do you have to go through like law school and all that kind of stuff to get to this point, or do you enlist and then just go through training through the military? Like, how does that work?
So typically to become a JAG officer, you have to have graduated from American Bar Association accredited law school. So you would have done undergrad in some degree, and it can be, and for anybody that wants to go to law school, you can have a wide variety of degrees. There's no set curriculum to be truly pre-law. You could have a degree in dance and theater. You could have a degree in engineering. You could have a degree in everything in between, and then go to law school, graduate law school, and upon graduation from law school, you would be eligible for looking at coming into the JAG Corps. Also, you'd have to meet the age requirements and obviously certain physical requirements. But from an educational standpoint, it'd have to be a graduation from an American Bar Association accredited law school.
Okay.
I want to piggyback on that a little bit. So the JAG Corps encompasses the enlisted warrant officers and the officers. In order to be enlisted, you have to have a certain score, and then you can qualify to become a 27 Delta paralegal, and you go off to school at Fort Lee, and then you become a JAG enlisted. You can also become a warrant officer, where they're more so a office manager, and we have the chief warrant officer for the JAG Corps is actually from South Carolina, CW5 West. And then in order to become an officer is what Colonel Barton was talking about. So if you want to be an officer in the JAG Corps, you have to be an attorney prior to coming on. We kind of alluded to this before we came in here. A lot of our JAGs had prior service, so they may have been artillery or infantry while they were in school, and then they became an attorney, got their bar license, and then joined the JAG Corps as an officer and attorney.
Okay, so it's not like I walk into a recruiter's office and it's like, I want to be a JAG. Like, there's a whole other process. You can't just enlist as being a JAG.
You have to already be an attorney if you want to be an attorney in the military.
Okay.
So you've already done law school, and you've taken the bar, and you pass the bar, and then you put in an application to become a JAG. You get approved, then you have to go to military JAG school, and you also have to go to some traditional military training to, prove that you're a military member also. But first and foremost, you have to already be an attorney.
Okay.
For folks who are interested in becoming a judge advocate in the South Carolina Army National Guard or paralegal, we're in a posture right now where we're bringing in new judge advocates. We've got 23 slots, I think, in the state for judge advocates, and we're in a position where we're trying to bring in a few each year. Colonel Barton is leading that effort, but also on the paralegal side. So that's a 27 alpha on the
27 delta.
Well, yeah, for judge advocates,
Yep.
and then 27 delta for paralegals. We're also trying to do that with paralegals. I think we've got a similar number of slots for the paralegals. So we are wanting to talk to people about both becoming a judge advocate and a paralegal. And the best way to do that, like Major Wright said, is to reach out to us. We generally do some screening and just kind of vet people, talk to them about what it like this, what it involves, and then ultimately we just kind of put them in the pipeline for that recruitment side, and then they have to start checking off the blocks that are required in order to come in. But ultimately, if someone's interested, we want to talk to them because we do have some needs, and reaching out to us is the best way to do that.
And typically what we'll try to do is if, let's say, that attorney's from the Greenville area, we have several attorneys in the JAG Corps already that live in the Greenville area. We'll refer them. They may even, in fact, know them, so they can feel comfortable talking to them, getting some background, finding out, hey, what is it really like? I see what it's like on paper, but tell me what it's really like in real life. And we found that is really a successful way to recruit people in because they get straight information from someone they trust, and it helps set them up for success, too, when they first come in.
If you're in the listening audience and you want to speak to one of us about the subject, you can call 803-299-4319 and leave a message if no one answers, and we'll definitely get back to you in a timely fashion.
Okay. Now, sir, you mentioned that there's 23 slots. So are there slots within the whole state, like at brigade level, or what does that look like? So
that is a good question. So we've got units of judge advocates within each MSC, I guess is how we refer to them, with one sort of exception. And I'll run through those with you. We've got a few attorneys at each one of these. So we at the Engineer Brigade, the 117th, we've got some attorneys. The 218th Infantry Brigade, attorneys there. 228th Signal Brigade, same thing. 263rd Air and Missile Defense Command in Anderson. We've got 59th Troop Command out at McIntyre. 59th Aviation Command. Colonel Barton's at the AAMDC, and Major Wright's at the 59th Aviation Troop Command. We've got a trial defense group. We've also got a 678th
Air Defense Artillery.
Is that what they are? They're ADA. They've got a field artillery component to them, but I guess they're an ADA brigade.
The Field Artillery Battalion falls underneath 678th Brigade.
Yeah, and so we've got some attorneys there, and then we've got a JFHQ unit, which I'm part of, which supports the JFHQ command, and within that unit, we've got some trial defense service attorneys who represent soldiers in South Carolina as well as a region that South Carolina is a part of. And they fall under JFHQ really mainly for administrative purposes. So within each one of those MSCs, we've got 1, 2, 3 judge advocates who are helping with, as Colonel Barton said at the beginning, helping the command and also servicing soldiers, which we want to talk to y'all about that as well, is how we can help soldiers out as well, but we serve those commands.
Yeah, so the JAGs always work at the brigade level or higher. The 27 Deltas have an opportunity to work at the battalion level as well. So 27 Deltas may get pushed out to the battalion level to work at that level. You're never going to usually see them at the company level below. When I say that they're at the battalion level, they're at the headquarters company or the headquarters battery for that battalion. And then if they're at the MSC, they're at the headquarters company for that MSC.
That's an important part, I guess, for the folks who just trying to understand how we're structured. That the paralegals are part of our team, and so within each one of those units, like Colonel Barton said, the paralegals, while they might serve at the battalion level, they're really part of the legal team, and we've got support from the adjutant general and his staff that those paralegals are really intended to be part of the legal team, and so we've had an initiative in place for a year or two to try to really make that more robust and make sure that sort of whole team effort is being fulfilled.
So one of the things we try to do for our paralegals is we'll have an annual paralegal training day where we bring in all the paralegals from the entire state. They come here to Columbia to the tag building, and we'll do a one-day training for them. It's an opportunity for them to kind of interact with one another, interact with us, and provide them with a good knowledge base, and then to push them back out in the field to work with their respective commands.
Okay. Now, one question with you guys going back and forth with all that I had is, what's some differences, or is there differences between those who are out at the MSc level on an M-Day status versus like you all are full-time in some kind of capacity? Like, are there differences with the job or day-to-day or things that you would come across or work with? Or is it kind of all the same? It's just whether you do it on the weekend or whether you do it full-time?
So I would say I'll let Calvin talk a little bit about maybe some of the M-Day and that crossover. There is definitely a difference, though. Typically, the everyday function kind of supporting the organization, we end up dealing with a lot of folks who are dual status technicians, so the Title 32 soldiers. We also deal with AGR soldiers, more so on the full-time capacity. And then on the M-Day side, typically you're involved with your unit's training cycle, depending on what kind of mission your unit may be getting ready to do. If you're going to deploy overseas, obviously you're training up for that. Or let's say you're getting ready for a warfighter exercise, or a big formal exercise that you're going to do. The JAG's going to be integrally involved with that, and it's going to depend on what your MSc is as to what involvement the JAG has. Let's say you're at the 218th Brigade, you might be helping. In this case, the 218th is getting ready to deploy overseas to the Horn of Africa. So they've been doing a lot of training, looking at rules of engagement, soldier conduct. They'll be working with the command on those kind of issues. I'll let you talk a little bit about some of the things that you see from your foxhole at the Aviation Troop Command, because they have an interesting mission.
Yeah, so when you're M-Day, you're dealing with the core competencies that you learn as being a JAG, like you said, when you're advising the commander and then the legal assistance. But up here as a full-timer, we're dealing with a lot more federal, like federal employment type issues, and dealing with EEO issues and versus the EO issues that would be when you're in uniform versus being a federal employee. So it's a lot of overlap, but there are definitely some differences. I can tell you when I came up here in 19, it's definitely a learning curve of going from just going over the standard training packages with the soldiers, talking about Lautenberg and talking about Sharp and things of that nature that you kind of go through on the drill weekend. When you come up here, you're dealing with a whole lot. You're dealing with that plus more. So it's just, I wouldn't say that someone who's an M-Day JAG couldn't come up here, but they definitely have to be prepared that it's not going to be the same as your drill weekend. We can cover down a lot for them. They probably couldn't cover down for us just because we had to get additional training once you come on here. So we always encourage folks to come up and see what we're doing, because I can tell you they probably don't understand what we're doing. Just like anybody else, you think that your job is always harder than the next guy's job. So, but a lot of times they come up and they're like, "Oh wow, you guys are doing a whole lot." But this is definitely a lot more robust area. A lot. It's different because I can tell you, Chris and myself, we were both prior to coming on here, we were criminal prosecutors, and at one point I was a defense attorney for about 5 years, and I was a prosecutor for like 9 years. And this is a totally different world. It's a learning curve to be able to provide the agency what they need from their legal staff.
And typically what you find from the full-time staff is, we view our job is to support the M-Day staff. So we're there to try to help, manage the organization itself. But then our primary focus is just to make sure that we've got in place those folks at that MSc level or at that battalion level. When you say MSc, Major Subordinate Command, so those folks are there, and so if they show up on, let's say it's just your typical drill weekend, they show up on a Saturday morning, they're ready to go and hit the ground running. They've got everything they need in terms of equipment, support and that type of stuff to be ready to do their training, so they can focus on training and not have to necessarily focus on the underlying organization and the running of it.
And I've got really nothing new to add to that, except I can publicly thank these guys because they do a great job. We've got a great full-time staff. I've worked in-house for organizations a lot throughout my civilian career, and we've got a great in-house attorney group. We're really fortunate to have that, and they do help. So I've been the MSC side where they support those, so they support those folks, and they do a great job. On the M-Day side, you really end up supporting your command, and a lot of the command and the staff and the soldiers are also M-Day and part-time. So they're coming in with a posture of really that preparation and training. That's what those MSCs, are in that status of being ready. And so you end up sort of supporting whatever the command's focus is with their responsibility to be ready. And a lot of times that ends up being things like, investigations when things occur that need to be looked into. The JAGs help with that. Things get broken and lost. You get involved with that. The command wants to make sure they sometimes get an opinion about what they want to do, so they inquire and get advisement from the JAGs about a reg or a law or just the posture of a decision that they're trying to make. We also do provide some legal assistance to soldiers during those weekends as well, and so that's another role that we can play. But I'd say a lot of the work I haven't done it for a few years, but in that posture, but it's investigations, it's some military justice and non-judicial punishment, administrative type stuff, and then claims, Philippials, that sort of thing is a big component of it. Now, I'll say this too for anyone listening out there who may not always see their JAG on a drill weekend. We do a lot of work throughout the month. A judge advocate supporting these commands and their staff. So it's not just the commander, it's the staff and others. They get calls all the time, and really, really proud of them, because one of the things I tell our branch group is that I don't hear a whole lot of complaints from commanders and units about our judge advocates, which tells me that they're doing a great job out there. So just really proud of everybody for that. So.
Yeah. I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because as you, sir, were bringing up like the training exercises and all of that, and then, sir, you brought up like if equipment is lost or broken or whatever, when you're a lower enlisted in these units and you are a part of these kind of things, or you kind of know what a JAG is, but you don't know really what they do, I would have never thought that that's something that JAG would do. Like, why would they need to be involved in the training exercises and all that? But now it makes sense, because it's like there's all this stuff that goes into it, and you said the rules of engagement and all of that. Like, when I was an MP prior to being public affairs, so I just thought they told us what we could and couldn't do, and that was it. Like, I would have never thought that that's something that somebody else would be a part of or have some kind of say in.
Yeah, no, Kelvin talked a little bit about the core competencies, and when he's talking about that, there's core competencies that, as an attorney, the JAG Court teaches every JAG, and they expect them to have that. In terms of areas of the law, though, you can imagine that when you have an entity as big as the Army or Air Guard, you're touching so many different areas. And I'll just give you a quick little rundown of just some of the areas we do. So we do labor law, and that can be, advising in our case on the full-time staff when we have civilian employees, and I'm a civilian employee. We also have Title 32 technicians who are kind of in a unique role in that they wear a uniform, but they're really a civilian employee Monday through Friday, unless they're in a drill status or in some type of on orders to be on actual military duty, and they belong to a union. So, we do labor law in that regard. We actually engaged recently in a contract negotiation with the labor union, and Kelvin was actually a part of that. So that's something that you might not typically see elsewhere. We do environmental law. We go on, and if we are building a new building, we'll do an environmental assessment. If we are looking to we go out to the National Training Center. You have to be aware of the certain environmental restrictions if you're training out at Fort Irwin, California. If you go down to Fort Stewart, even we will potentially be triggering environmental assessments. We recently are in the process of becoming a tenant at the air base in Charleston, and that involved an environmental assessment before we took over a building down there. We do national security law. That I'll have to say I never liked that term. I'm an old school. I like it's operational law, but law of war, law of armed conflict, and that's important. And that can be cyber law now too, intelligence law, and special operations law. And so it comes with a wide variety of areas. So let's just say, by way of example, the Field Artillery Battalion, they would typically have, when we're deployed overseas, whether that was in Iraq or Afghanistan, you'd have a targeting cell, and part of that targeting cell would usually be a JAG officer in there to help making sure that they comply with the rules of engagement, and it has specialized knowledge to look at and advise that commander before you engage with some heavy weaponry to try to minimize collateral damage. And so that's just one area. Contract and fiscal law. Every time we buy a tank or we buy a Humvee or we buy a piece of aircraft equipment, there's a contract and there's fiscal law things that go in there. So we do criminal law. We talked a little bit about that already. We do legal assistance, administrative law, just the running of the business. Again, we talked about operational law, and then we also do civil litigation. So, we're like any other corporation or any other business out there. We get sued from time to time too, and so that we'll sit there and we'll look over that. We'll look over the allegations, and sometimes we can handle it internally. Other times we'll hand those cases off to either the U.S. Attorney's Office or to private counsel to help help us manage our litigation.
Got one thing to sort of Colonel Barton jogged sort of something in my mind. We also get mobilized just like everybody else. So our judge advocates to 27 alphas and the paralegals 27 deltas go on get mobilized and deployed along with everybody else. So we've had folks sent to the border as part of the Texas mission, Kuwait as part of the Signal Brigade group. We've got folks going to Africa as part of the 218th on state active duty. We have roles during hurricane or emergency operations. We had folks activated during the the pandemic. So, when units are getting called up to serve that function, talked earlier about sort of the posture of MSCs is to be ready. When they get called to actually perform, oftentimes our judge advocates are, being brought into that circumstance as well as paralegals. And so we play that role as well. We have an active duty role that we have to perform when called upon.
So typically the Army will train you in the kind of the core competencies. As a young JAG, you're typically the first couple assignments are going to be just really, and I'm looking more at the Title 10 side of the house, but it probably applies to some of us in the Guard as well. You're typically going to go be assigned as a trial counsel or as a legal assistance officer right out of the gate. After that is when you'll have an opportunity to, through the schooling that you choose to attend, you can try to kind of shape your career a little bit. It's always a little bit of a balance between the needs of the Army and what the soldier might want. But I know that, for Kelvin, for Major Wright, what he has tried to do is, he's now beginning to focus on the labor side of the house. And he talked a little bit earlier about EO and EEO. So EO is equal opportunity and EEO is the equal employment opportunity. And so those laws are federal laws and some state laws that apply to everyone that works within an organization that, everyone's treated equally and equitably. And so those are issues that we will potentially deal with. And you can have an opportunity through, your continuing legal education to gain knowledge in those specialized areas of the law. And what you'll see typically over the career of a JAG is they will, again, always try to maintain their core competencies, but then they can kind of branch off into a specialty that they might choose to. Cyber law has been one of the things that I was interested in, and it's really obviously been a recently developing field because when I first joined the National Guard, there wasn't cyber law. I'm kind of a dinosaur. But, and so you see that has become a thing now, and we actually, at the national level, one of our former South Carolina JAGs is kind of leading that effort. That's Major Brandon Rowland, who came from South Carolina, is now working at National Guard Bureau and in their operational law section, and actually helps to run the cyber course that is usually done on an annual basis where they do an operation and a training and so he does that. So again, you have a wide variety of options there to, again, depending on what the organization may want you to do. But usually what we'll try to do is someone who really has a desire to, like, I want to branch into this area of the law, we can usually try to find a niche that can help support that.
And also kind of piggybacks on your civilian career. If you're an MDay in your civilian career, you deal with a lot of ethics, then you may be our ethics guru. If your practice is estate planning, when we do legal assistance and there's a hard question, we default to the people who have the most knowledge on the civilian side, because it's a lot of overlap. It's not a distinct line between being a JAG and being a civilian attorney in South Carolina. It's pretty much same rules and regulations on Title 10. You know, you're dealing with like UCMJ type versions of the actions, whereas when you're MDay and when we're at work, we're dealing with South Carolina Code of Military Justice when we're talking about different actions. So it's not a big leap from going from Title 10 thought process to coming to 32, but there is some distinction, and it's just easier for us to default to someone who does that on a day-to-day basis of being a South Carolina attorney when we have issues that come up. And not just with using the UCMJ, South Carolina Code of Military Justice as an example, but it correlates also to like estate planning and ethics and things of that nature. You have to have that duality of going from the federal side to the state side.
Like I was saying before, like you have this perception of these different jobs. I mean, people do it with us, with public affairs. They're like, oh, you just go take photos. Oh, and it's like, no, you don't understand like what else goes on with it. Like, yeah, we have the worker bees like me who are out getting the coverage and stuff, but then you have Major Evans who is behind the scenes working with you guys, working with the tag when like all hell's breaking loose basically, or people are doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. We get phone calls all the time, emails, messages on social media. Like, I mean, there's just so much more that goes into it than just taking a photo.
So you mentioned that, and we get Major Evans, just who's the public affairs officer, is just right down the hall from us. But even when it was Major Donnelly, but even before Major Evans, we used to get situations where, hey, the governor's office has called and wants to know about something, or a news media outlet has called about doing something, whether it's a television station or like a newspaper. Most recently we've had a situation where the newspaper is calling, trying to find out information about the soldiers that we're going to send to the Texas border mission in a state active duty capacity. And so that's where we interact with other staff like that to help review and just shape the message and make sure that we're putting out accurate information, but also making sure that we're following the law with the information that we put out.
I deal with PAO a lot with community relations. We'll get requests for speakers or for the band or for a flyover, and it has to meet the regulations that the tag has put out in his Comrail community relations policy, and it requires PAO to approve it and for JAG to approve it, making sure that everything is stress right addressed. It's not something outside of the ordinary that the tag has envisioned when he said that we can support community events. So we do cross pollinate with different parts of the agency, specifically PAO.
And that's one thing that, again, that's part and parcel of what a JAG does, both at the state level, at our level, and at the MSC level. Is it's not just there to advise the commanders, but it's also there to advise the staff, whether it's the S1, S2, S3, 4, and so on. So that'd be the personnel officer, intel, operations, and logistics. So we're going to provide advice to all those staff officers.
Yeah, and I'd like to do a little bit of a public service announcement. I don't know if we still got folks listening and paying attention at this point. We've got some services available to soldiers. So if someone in the command or staff or just a service member is listening in the National Guard, we provide legal assistance support to members of the South Carolina Army National Guard, and we've got a very talented judge advocate group. They are criminal prosecutors, criminal defense. They are the domestic lawyers. We've got estate planners. We've got members of the House of Representatives, South Carolina Senate. The Attorney General of the state is one of our members. We've got a very good, diverse group of professionals, and one of the services that judge advocates provide is we're known for wills and powers of attorney in legal assistance, but we will also help people with issues they're facing whether they be, tenant issues or employment issues or whatever. And while we can't represent them individually, we can kind of advise them and give them some options and ideas about how to deal with issues they're facing. And sometimes we can actually, do a thing or two. But we've got a number we want to put out there to, if people, just want to inquire whether we're available to them for legal assistance. That also, when soldiers get into an issue where a serious maybe misconduct issue, we've got a group called Trial Defense who the Army has designated to be there independent of the command to help soldiers who are in some kind of trouble. And we've got a group designated for that. So when folks run into an issue, let's say positive drug test or something like that, we've got a group that hopefully they'll get pipelined to outside of hearing this, but we want to make sure they know that this trial defense service is there for them as well. And we've got a number that we want to put out for that as well.
Start with if you need legal assistance, you would call our office. The number would be 803-299-4319, and you leave a message, or if someone picks up, you let them know what's going on, and then we'll get someone to call you back. If you're in need of trial defense services, you call a Staff Sergeant Bennett, and his phone number is 910-214-1757, and you will let him know what's going on, and then he will relay you to one of the JAG officers in our state. And we have a couple. We have at least three that cover the state, and then we have like a couple that are on the regional level. So you would get relayed to one of those folks, and they would assist you.
So I'll tell you just a real, I think, interesting legal assistance story. I got a phone call out of the blue from a soldier who thought he was a little bit concerned that something was a hoax, that someone was contacting him. It was an attorney from Ohio that was contacting him to say, hey, you've inherited a rather large sum of money, and we need you to get in touch with us as soon as possible. And he's thinking, oh, this is the Nigerian prince or princess that has promised me, I just have to send him $1,000 for me to get the $5 million released to me or something like that. And so I spoke with the soldier, got a little bit more information, and learned that he had become estranged from his parents at some point in time and really had not maintained contact with his parents for a rather significant period of time. And turned out that, his parents were older and passed away and had actually left him an estate of, several $1 million. Oh, wow. And so what we were able to do is help make those connections. There's one, again, Jeff talked about the depth and breadth that we have in terms of the JAG Corps, ranging from our current Attorney General all the way down to corporate attorneys to, defense attorneys to, in this case, an attorney who has a practice in trust and estates. And so he's very familiar with that. So I was able to link that soldier up with that attorney who could then reach out to the attorney in Ohio. And, lo and behold, this soldier is now inheriting a not insubstantial amount of money.
Wow.
It's not me.
Well, it's not me either. That's crazy. And that's the thing too, is the world we live in now and the technology, there's so many scams going on and everything like that. And so it's nice to know that the soldiers, service members, and their families and stuff have somewhere that they can go to get some kind of advice, because a lot of people, it's the money. Well, I have to pay an attorney or a lawyer, all this money to go talk to them and this and that. But being in the Guard, it's nice to have people like y'all that we can sit down and have those conversations with to kind of put them at ease and point them in the right direction so that they don't get misled into something that they shouldn't have done or whatever the case may be. So I think it's great. And that was actually a question that I was going to ask, is how you guys worked with the soldiers and stuff like that. So I'm glad you brought it up.
They can call that number. Our judge advocates at the MSCs are available. I'll speak for them. They're there to do legal assistance. So if you've got an issue on a drill weekend, you can go into that office and feel welcome to ask for, they may not be able to get your question right then, but you can coordinate with them to provide that legal assistance during a drill weekend or during annual training. And just as an FYI, one of the things on our to-do list is to try to make the legal assistance side of what we do a little more organized and we wanted to kind of make it a little bit more modern because with COVID bringing into the digital platform how you can meet with people, how you can talk to people, Chris mentioned being a dinosaur. The sort of the paradigm of legal assistance is you meet with somebody. They come into the office and you talk, or maybe you do it over the phone. But now you can really meet whenever, and you can even have face-to-face, and you can share documents, digitally. So we're looking at doing some more of that, and so hopefully there'll be more to come along those lines. But folks should feel very welcome to walk into any judge advocate office within their brigades or wherever they serve and ask for that help, or just reach out by phone to the assigned judge advocates as well. So,
and I'm turning into the numbers guy, but I have another number to give you.
Okay.
All right. So someone has an issue and they can't get in contact with any of us, and it's not military related. The South Carolina Bar referral number is 1-800-868-2284, and you can get a civilian attorney's number, and so you can make contact and maybe have a consultation. And they have like certain parameters where it's a limit of how much they can charge you for the consultation if you go through that service. But if you want to speak to me during the week, attorney advisor Kelvin Wright, not Major Kelvin Wright, you can give me a call at 803-299-4223. That's my desk number. I'm pretty much always there, so you give me a call and I can help you and push you in the right direction. If I can't help you, I'm pretty sure I know somebody who can.
That is definitely, I'm glad Major Wright brought that up. Our bar, the South Carolina Bar, that's the licensing sort of entity and the Association for Attorneys in South Carolina. They do have some great veteran services, so anyone facing issues should kind of look up that. They've got a website, and you can go look up the resources they offer to veterans. It's scbar.org.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to put all this stuff in the show notes for everybody to have easy access to it, because we've mentioned a lot of different things, and that way they can go back and figure out which number they may possibly need. But yeah, this is a lot of great information. One thing that I thought about earlier, before we got into the weeds of what you guys do, is we don't talk about the Air Guard as much, but and I know all of you guys are Army, so does the Air Guard side have their own form of JAGs, or do you guys kind of work with our Air Guard as well?
Yeah, so I work with the Air Guard JAGs on a pretty regular basis as a state staff judge advocate. So you have Lieutenant Colonel Harmon. I think it's still Major Dugan, or did he just recently get promoted?
I think it's Colonel Harmon now, Lieutenant Colonel
Dugan. Okay, so yeah, maybe they both got promoted then. And then Captain Timmons, who are there at the Air Guard side. And so they're with the 169th Fighter Wing out at McIntyre. And again, we work with them on a regular basis, very similar to on the Army side. Probably, a little bit less so in that they're pretty much autonomous. We just interact from time to time as needed. But on the Air Guard side, they have very similar programming as to the Army, and they also will provide legal assistance. And they're there again to advise the commanders. And I think actually both of those attorneys are getting ready to do a deployment. Believe it or not, I think the 169th Fighter Wing is going to be doing a deployment to Saudi Arabia, and I think they're going on that deployment as well. Yeah, so.
Okay. Another question that I had with the numbers, sir, you were saying there's 23 slots in the state. Currently, roughly estimated, how many JAG officers enlisted? Anybody within the Corps, like how many people do you think that you have right now that are in those slots?
Judge advocates and paralegals, I think close to 50 if you add the two together, the judge advocates and paralegals. And we're allowed to go to overstrength, and we've got a target of trying to get 150% overstrength. We are not there with the judge advocates or the paralegals, but I think it's around 50.
Yeah, we're actually, we're authorized to be 200% overstrength. So in other words, if we've got 20 slots, we could actually have 40 individuals. That's a little bit unmanageable, but our goal has always been to be right around that 140 to 150. That's kind of the sweet spot for our organization, at least from my perspective. And so we typically, we'll have, one or two officers either retiring at some point in time. And so, we're trying to kind of always keep that churn to bring in new officers. And we've had officers come in from other branches too. So one of our current JAGs is a former Marine. We've had other folks come in from the Air Guard side, from the Air Reserve side, from the Air
Active
Force,
duty.
from active duty. So we've had we had a former Navy officer that had come in. So we recruit from all branches of the service that have come, that maybe came back from South Carolina after an active duty tour and are still looking to try to stay active in some way, shape, or form. So we're happy to talk to them and see if it's a good fit.
Okay. Now, I know we kind of talked a little bit about it earlier, but basically if anybody who's listening or watching is interested, they just can reach out to, we'll put the contact information below, but reach out to you guys to kind of get a feel for what they're interested in and the process to move forward and everything like that, basically.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll put the information out. The recruiting and retention office has a special branches recruiter that we work with, but typically what we try to do is talk to those individuals one-on-one, and again, we'll try to give them some other names so they can talk to folks who are kind of similarly situated to them, so they can kind of get a good idea of, hey, what's it really mean to be a JAG? What's it mean to be an M-Day JAG, the traditional guardsman, where I'm just coming in on the weekend and doing annual training, and then maybe doing schooling periodically.
And we want to talk to them.
Yep.
So anyone listening, please call, because we don't mind even if they're just kind of exploring the idea of it. Just to kind of understand whether or not they'd be interested. We're happy to talk about what we do with them and talk about what they would do if they were to come on board.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate y'all taking the time out of your very busy schedules to come talk to us. Before I close out, is there anything that maybe we didn't talk about that you want to mention, or a question that I didn't ask that you kind of want to talk about? I know we talked about a lot, but
I appreciate y'all doing this. This is kind of a great opportunity for us to talk about what we do, and also us to put out the word about some important information. But I don't have anything further. Do y'all?
Kelvin, you got anything you want to close this out with?
I think we covered all the items that we brainstormed that would be important. I think one thing is that we didn't specifically say it in the way that we discussed it, like the myths about being JAGs. Okay. We work for the military, and that's our ultimate client. But as a part of that, you think about what's our mission in the National Guard is to train and prepare, fight our nation's battles. That means making sure the soldiers are at ease when they go off to war or when they go off on deployments. So that's where legal assistance fits into it. So if you can structure it to preparing you for your training mission, we can assist you. But we're here for the command, but we also are here for the soldiers and for the mission at the end of the day. So I love being a JAG. It's one of the best decisions I made. I'm glad I'm an attorney, but I can tell you being a JAG attorney beats being a regular attorney, hands down, every day, all day. One more thing, we didn't tell you where we're located. We're located at the TAG building on the 3rd floor. If you get off the elevator and you go to your left, when you're facing the green room, you'll pass by the chaplain's area and then PAO area, and then you'll run into the JAG area, and that's where we're at. If you have needs or issues that are pressing, we'll be more than happy to assist you.
And at the brigades, each JAG is generally located close to the command and staff. So there's typically a judge advocate office somewhere in the vicinity. If you make it to where the commander is, and I know probably people don't want to be walking by that office, but if you're in that vicinity, there's going to be a judge advocate somewhere, office somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay. Awesome. Anything else before? I just want to make sure we get everything.
Can't give an attorney a microphone with you.
There's nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.